Welcome back to Trader UK, the money management channel. Today I'm back looking at individual savings accounts, or as you're probably more familiar with them, ISAs. I'm going to take a look at the different types of ISA that are available to you, the allowances that go with them and how they work, but in particular, I want to look at the lifetime ISA. The lifetime ISA for me, this is your £1 million ISA. If anyone out there wants to be a millionaire, start with a lifetime ISA and I'll show you how that works. Before we get going today, if I can ask that you like the video and as always, subscribe for more similar content. And on screen here, we have the guidance from HMRC on ISAs, individual savings accounts. The concept of an ISA is simple. Any assets that you hold in an individual savings account or an ISA here, they're shielded from tax essentially. This means that the investments, if they appreciate in value, they become worth more or they generate an income maybe, then HMRC won't be able to ask you for a cut of the profits like they usually would under capital gains tax or income tax rules. That won't happen providing the assets are held within an ISA. But unfortunately, it's not every type of asset that you can hold in an ISA. For example, you can't just take a rental property, chuck it in an ISA, and the capital gains that you make and the rental income is all tax-free. It doesn't work that way. So we have on screen here 4 different types of ISA. I'm just going to highlight them very quickly. 4 different types of ISA available to us. This is per the HMRC website. There have been more previously. You might be able to think of more junior ISAs, that kind of thing. But this covers the majority of them. So we have the cash ISA, we have stocks and shares ISA, the innovative ISA, and the lifetime ISA. And the first sort of misconception that I often see is that you can only have one of each of these ISAs. One cash ISA, one stocks and shares ISA, one innovative. That's actually wrong. You can have as many as you want really, but the rule is you can't pay into more than one each tax year. So if I open one of these at the top, the cash ISA today, and I pay in £100 to it, a nice Barclays cash ISA, and then I walk down the road and I see HSBC have one as well that offers a really good rate, I won't be able to open that second cash ISA until the next tax year, which will be the 6th of April 2021 from now. Then once I've actually got those 2 ISAs open in future tax years, it's fine to have 2 or 3 or 4, but I can't pay into more than one in the same tax year. So in future, I'm going to have to choose between them. Which one do I want to pay into in that particular year? So yes, you can have multiple ISAs, but you only have one ISA allowance, and you can see that in green at the top here, currently £20,000 per year. It could be increased or decreased by HMRC, depending on how much they want you to save or spend. They could increase this amount or decrease this amount, and they have done in the past. But currently £20,000 for the 2021 tax year. Your £20,000 ISA allowance can be split across these different ISA types. So you could pay a few thousand into the cash ISA, a few thousand into the stocks and shares ISA, a few thousand into the innovative ISA, and then a few thousand into the lifetime ISA if you want. Providing you don't exceed that £20,000 allowance, that's not a problem at all to do that. And the first of the 4 ISAs that we have here is your cash ISA. Think of a cash ISA as a savings account. It is a savings account. The only difference is that the interest that you generate on this savings account is going to be tax-free. You would normally open one of these with your high street bank or an online provider, maybe the post office, online bank, that kind of thing. For me, this ISA is no good at the moment. Interest rates are too low. It's just not effective enough. Saving rates are so low at the moment that you're not going to generate any sort of decent return on this investment. And for most of us, the amount of interest that you would actually earn on an ISA, it would have been tax-free anyway. Most people can receive £1,000 per year, or maybe more than that, tax-free savings income. So even if you put your full £20,000 into a cash ISA, you're probably going to get a 1% return at the moment. That's £200 per year. That money would have been tax-free anyway. So for me, paying into a cash ISA, unless you're building up a huge balance, it's just not worthwhile at the moment. And then here we got the stocks and shares ISA, one of my favourites. Potentially your highest risk, highest reward ISA. Instead of shielding cash, you're shielding stocks and shares, so securities in this type of ISA. Obviously, your shares aren't going to generate any interest, so it's going to be the dividends that you receive and the capital gain. As those shares appreciate in value, it's all going to be generated tax-free, so you can make some big tax savings here. Again, it's a similar kind of situation. For the majority of us, if you have a small portfolio, then the money that you would have generated anyway, the dividends and the capital gain would have been tax-free, but given some time, as you build up your portfolio, you can make some really, really big tax savings with this one. So personally for me, I always opt to use the majority of my allowance to invest in this type of ISA. I think it's probably one of the most effective. Most likely you're not going to see the tax saving until further down the line, but really the sooner you can start using a stocks and shares ISA, the better. Then we have the innovative ISA, probably the least well-known of the ISA and not one that I've ever held. Think of this one as like your money being lent out to third parties. So it's a peer-to-peer lending service. Any money that you deposit into the ISA, the provider will then match you with a borrower. They borrow the money from your ISA and they agree to pay it back with an amount of interest on top of that. Now, like any lending situation, there's always a bit of risk there. That does normally mean that you'll get a slightly better interest rate than with the cash ISA, for example, but there's a risk of them defaulting on that loan. Now, you normally have insurance packaged in with that kind of ISA so that if they did default, you're covered anyway, but it still remains the least popular and, like I say, not an ISA that I've ever opened. And then we have the lifetime ISA. Now, this is my absolute favorite ISA, even more so than the stocks and shares ISA, and I will show you why in a second. Think of this one as more like a pension pot. Your money is normally going to be tied up until you're 60 years old, or maybe if you're buying a house and you can withdraw it as well. There is a clause in there for this. You have to be between 18 and 40 years old to open one of these, and you can pay in up to £4,000 per year. So the other ISAs that we mentioned before, you could use your whole £20,000 allowance if you wanted each year, but for this one, you can only pay in £4,000 per year. And there's a reason for that. It's because HMRC will also contribute 25% of whatever you contribute. So if you put £1,000 in, then they're going to contribute £250. If you put the full £4,000 in, then you're going to get a £1,000 top up from HMRC. So if you were 18 years old, you could potentially contribute £132,000 into this ISA between the age of 18 and 50 years old. HMRC would then top it up by £33,000, and that gives you £165,000. And that doesn't sound too bad, right? But wait. In this type of ISA, you can either hold cash, like the first example, which I said isn't the best, or you can hold stocks and shares. Now, with the cash ISA, it's a bit of a waste of time. Probably £165,000 by the time you're 60. If interest rates stay the same, will end up becoming 180 or 200,000 maybe, which again isn't too bad. But what if you held stocks and shares in this ISA? Let's take a look at what might happen then. Now, the average annual return for the S&P 500 across the last 50 or 60 years, 1957, there you go, through to 2018, is about 8% per year. So 50 or 60 years, 8% per year. That takes into account, obviously, all the ups and downs. So you can do the math for your own circumstance, if you like, depending on your age and what you can afford to invest into this type of ISA. But let me tell you, I already did the maths for an 18-year-old that contributes the full £4,000 per year and takes the £1,000 per year bonus from HMRC. By the time they reach 60 years old, they would have £1.68 million. £1.68 million tax-free to withdraw from this ISA. And that is based on a pretty conservative 8% return for the S&P 500. If you're any good at investing, and you can outperform the S&P 500, then your returns are obviously going to be magnified. So we're talking about potentially millions of pounds here. And it's not a joke, that's genuinely what the numbers suggest. And that is a little bit of a crude calculation, of course. There's no guarantees the market will perform in the same way. I haven't taken into account the fact that the gains on the stock market normally take place throughout the year. I've just compounded them at the end of the year. We haven't taken into account the fact that you would normally contribute to your ISA as the months pass throughout the year. Again, I've just considered a lump sum at the end of the year. So it doesn't even take into account the fact that you would receive dividends on your income as well, which would boost the amount that you have invested, and again boosts the compounding rate as well. So it's not perfect by any means, but it does demonstrate the power of capital growth and compounding over a long period of time. And I've just switched across to the detailed guidance on the lifetime ISA here. Now, a lot of you will be aware, this 25% bonus that you have here from HMRC, this is the equivalent tax relief that you get when you pay into a pension scheme. And let me just make it clear, I'm not suggesting that everyone cancels their pension schemes and goes with one of these lifetime ISAs, but there are situations where this lifetime ISA is much better for you than a pension scheme. So let me just run through that. So where you are a higher rate taxpayer, if you have income above about £50,000 at the moment, you will get amazing tax relief by paying into a pension plan. Normally the effective tax relief that you get is something like 66% because of the way it shifts your income around and because of the way tax relief works. So stick with paying into a pension, but maybe open up one of these on the side. If you are in employment and you're paying into a workplace pension, then normally your employer is paying in as well. You're paying 2%, they pay in 2%. You pay in 5%, they pay in 5%. So again, if you're in that situation, continue to pay into your pension. You're getting free money from your employer, but maybe open one of these on the side. And then finally, if you are a basic rate taxpayer and you are self-employed, I know I have a lot of self-employed people subscribed to the channel. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer and you are self-employed, you are probably better off with one of these than you are paying into a private pension scheme. And let me explain why. The amazing advantage that the lifetime ISA has over a pension scheme is the fact that when you get to 60 years old, the entire pot is tax-free. You can take the whole lump sum tax-free. Even if it's 1.5, 1.6 million pound, you can take that tax-free. Now, if you'd have paid that money into a pension scheme, what happens when you reach retirement age? You can take 25%, a lump sum, tax-free. The rest of it, if you want to take it all, you need to pay tax on it. Or what most people tend to do is take a little bit each year. Take a little bit each year over a long period of time or the remainder of their life so that it ends up being tax-free or paying minimal tax on that. So that for me is an absolutely huge benefit to the lifetime ISA and why I recommend that everybody opens one. And in my opinion, if you have enough money to utilise your full ISA allowance each year, then you should be doing that. The most effective split for me would be the full 4,000 into the lifetime ISA to get your 1,000 bonus from HMRC, and then the remainder, the 16,000, would just go into a stocks and shares ISA. Until interest rates get higher again, they come back up at some point, then the other types of ISA just aren't effective enough for me. And where you can't pay in the full 20,000, you'll kind of have to weigh up what's going to be best for you. How much do you mind being tied up until you're 60 years old? And how much do you need to have easy access to? And you'll split the two again between the lifetime ISA and the stocks and shares ISA. Now, the final thing for me to mention here is that although I wouldn't advise it, if you got yourself, with this ISA, the lifetime ISA, if you get yourself into a tricky situation, there are actually situations like if you had a terminal illness, you can actually withdraw this anyway. You can withdraw early, tax-free again. So have a little look at that. Go and read the detailed guidance here. But let's say you just got into a little bit of financial difficulty and you paid a lot of money into your lifetime ISA. You can access this early, but you get charged a penalty for doing that. And it works out that you lose about 6% of what you've invested. So there is a way out. You've got that emergency lifeline if you need it. Hopefully you don't, because you'll get the best effect if you leave the money in there for the full duration until you're 60 years old. But it's nice to know that you have that flexibility should you need it. So that is everything for today, guys. I highly recommend this. I highly recommend that everybody gets themselves paying into a lifetime ISA. Go and read this guidance on the HMRC website. It's really clear, really useful. And then on moneysupermarket.com, you can do a search for providers. AJ Bell do one, Hargreaves Lansdowne do one as well, and have a look there. But if you watch my video, Investing for Teens, where I would put my money if I was 18 years old, it's the same kind of thing. That's how I will set this up. I will pay into my lifetime ISA, and I'll be setting it up with ETFs that track automation and clean energy, the S&P 500 and electric vehicles, because they're going to track those industries across a long period of time. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That's everything for today. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.